Welcome to the classroom. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
The equal right of all citizens to health, education, work, food, security, culture, science, and well-being. That is, the same rights we proclaimed when we began our struggle, in addition to those which emerged from our dreams of justice and equality for all inhabitants of our world, is what I wish for all. These words were spoken by Fidel Castro. So, to gain a beginner's understanding of the legislation, we need to start by understanding the purpose, the nature, the impact, the penalties, and the compliance associated with each act. All legislation, as per the Constitution, has one goal in mind. That is, to redress the imbalances of the past. A question which then deserves an answer is, what is the impact of the legislation? Meaning, are there any positives or are there any negatives? From a business's perspective, there may almost always be a burden of duty, which may have to be carried out by the business. This is why in the macro environment, the political landscape is one of the factors which we are constantly looking towards handling. A great way to try to remember the negatives of any legislation on the business is to use the acronym C.A.T. No, not the other subject that has you looking at a computer screen the whole day, but the following. Number 1, costly, which refers to what cost burden will the legislation have on the business. 2, admin, what additional layer of administrative paperwork, filing, and responsibilities will the additional legislation have on the business? The final one would be time. To dot the T's and cross the I's will obviously be time consuming. And if you do not look and listen carefully, mistakes will be made. Do you remember how it felt when Poppy needed to be updated? Now try to imagine how the administrative department felt having to receive and process all those responses. The next step on your journey towards understanding legislation would be explaining how a business would be operating in compliance or non-compliance with the legislation. If the business is in compliance, then hey, happy days, everybody wins, and the business continues in its endeavors to make money. However, on the flip side, if there is non-compliance, what are the consequences? Penalties, or F.P.S. They may generally be a financial punishment imposed on the business, a fine, if you may. There may be an imprisonment term linked to non-compliance. Another likely penalty would be that the business could potentially be shut down. Now that you have looked at the majority of the legislation, the final step would be looking at what the business could potentially do, which could prove discriminatory in terms of the legislation. What do I mean by this? What could the business do to violate the rights of its stakeholders? That is what I mean. In the IEB scheme of things, you will find that there is no single chapter on legislation in any of its textbooks. What they have rather preferred to do is to include the various legislation in the chapters so that it gives you a perspective of how it is applied in that context. A great example of this would be found in the chapters relating to human resources and industrial relations, where you could find the BCEA, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the LRA, the Labor Relations Act, COIDA, and a few others. But we will talk about them in the sense of this overview once I get to those acts.
Thank you for watching. I hope that you learned something new. Please consider supporting the classroom by heading to our Zapper or SnapScan link below to donate a small amount of your choosing to help us create more content from more subjects.
Thank you for joining us in this lesson. If you learned something, give the video a like, share, and subscribe for more great content.